Jai Hind to everybody. Today, I shall speak to you on a very interesting topic on how to use KPIs, key performance indicators, to steer and monitor an MRO company. Basically, KPIs communicate the measures that matter. It enables one to monitor all the verticals across an organization and steer it towards your strategy and vision. So KPIs, both financial and non-financial, are an important component to understand a company's progress towards its stated goals. So during my 10 odd years in the corporate sector, as the head of India for Enercon India and as CEO of Suzlon Global Services, we had to formulate the KPIs so that we could monitor every aspect of our business and ensure that the business grows in the direction that the promoters wanted it to grow. So I was heading the MRO portion of these businesses, so I will talk to you about that. Now, the starting point for choosing which KPI is key to a particular company should be those that the board, the management, uses to manage its business. Now, the board tends to get financial performance indicators, even though while they talk, they might be talking about maximizing customer experience, attracting and retaining the best and brightest people. But basically, financial performance indicators are the heart of any business. Now, KPIs currently presented to the board are those that allow them to assess progress against their strategy. And similarly, when they report it externally, it allows readers outside to make a similar assessment. KPIs depend on the industry in which you're operating. So a company in retail industry might use sales per square foot as a KPI, customer satisfaction as a KPI. An oil and gas company might use, how many new reserves I found, what is the measure of my exploration success. MRO companies will use KPIs like mean time between failures, mean time to repair, overall equipment effectiveness. So these sort of factors. Now, how many KPIs should we have? Basically, what most experts say is that between 4 and 10 are likely to be key KPIs for each vertical. Above that is too much, and below that does not really paint a proper picture. So between 4 and 10. And depending on the organization, you could have group KPIs, or for each vertical in the company, you could have a separate KPI. Mostly, it is more appropriate to have separate KPIs for each business segment. And we'll see how to segmentize the MRO business. Now, as a business grows, as its ethos changes, as its vision changes, a management continuously reflects on whether the KPIs they had originally chosen are still relevant, and they can keep changing it. Strategies and objectives develop over time. So KPIs basically are tools for measuring the progress of a business toward its goals. Once every stakeholder in a company or associated with the company works to maximizing his KPI scores, then the business is in a good space. Well-designed KPIs will ensure that they're all working in harmony, there's synergy, and the business will grow. MRO as such is a mature technology, but most companies generally still lack well-defined best practices to assess their performance. Now, KPIs can be applied to any area of performance, and it should align with the organization's vision, mission, and strategy. So the KPIs selected should follow this acronym SMART. They should be specific, easily measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So let us see now what are the key stakeholders in MRO business. I've highlighted business. It's a business. Finally, its aim is to make profits, is to generate revenue and generate income. So the key stakeholders would be obviously finance would be at the highest level. Then the supply chain and logistics, the customer relationship management, Maintenance and repair. Now, there's often a conflict in organizations between a CFO and a COO. A COO feels maintenance and repair is what the business is all about, so it should be the highest. That's a matter of opinion. But as it's a business, finally, it is the financial parameters, the financial KPIs, which should rule supreme. So hence I put finance ahead. Then the engineering team, the ones who analyzes all the type of work going on and looks at various aspects of the technical aspects of the maintenance and repair. The IT, ERP, analytics team, very important in modern days. The quality department, health and safety department, HR, human resources, and the administration department. So these are the 10 parts of who form the main various verticals of the MRO business. They could be reporting into each other, but these are the 10 key stakeholders, I feel. So let us now look at finance. Now, finance must take priority because a business lives to generate profit. Without profit, it will decay and die. So all decisions which you take must be such that you generate profit at the end of it. I can maintain an equipment infinitely with the best of possible spares and technologies, but if I'm not generating profit out of that business, then I'm doing something wrong. So let us see what are the KPIs which a finance CFO will look at. The first is the growth rate of revenue. Very important because this sees how his business is growing. The more the revenue means he has generated more business. Next is his earnings before taxes and depreciation. And this is also important because then it determines how efficiently he is spending money and what is the margin between revenue and his total expenses, which is his earnings. There's a small difference between earnings, net and gross profit. So profit margins are also measured. The net profit and the gross profit. Gross profit is the higher level and net profit removes certain essential expenses, etc. before you get the net profit. Then is the fixed cost. It is always the aim of finance to see that the fixed cost is kept under control. Fixed cost like what you pay for your infrastructure, what you're paying for your manpower, so that you do not have too much manpower, you don't have too costly infrastructure, because these are fixed costs which have tied down your capital. Another very important KPI is free cash flow. Finally, cash is king. That is one thing we must all remember in any business. Cash is king. It is not your earnings, it is not your profits. It is that free cash that you generate at the end of the year. And typically, you'll find, if you want to find out how ethically a company is managing its finances, look at its free cash flow. If its free cash flow is healthy and comparable to its EBITDA, then you know they are doing ethical business. Another very important is your inventory turnover ratio. Let us say, for example, my expenses on inventory in a year is about 500 crores. Now, ideally, I should be holding only that much inventory, which I can keep repeatedly turning over so that there is not much capital locked up in holding inventory. So a high inventory turnover ratio is a sign of efficiency, which the finance has as its KPI, and even the supply chain organization will have its KPI. So that you hold only those many spares which you can quickly consume, and you again regenerate those spares. You don't want to hold spares for 3-4 years and have an inventory turnover ratio of less than 1. Ideally, inventory turnover ratio should be 2, 3, 4, like that. Next is your cost per unit of equipment being supported. Let us say I'm in my wind energy business, I was supporting 13 gigawatts, 13,000 megawatts of business, of assets I was maintaining. So what is my cost to maintain each megawatt? There must be a continuous effort to reduce my maintenance cost per megawatt year on year. Another important aspect is reduction of working capital. Working capital is that amount of capital which is always locked up in the business. Say, if I'm maintaining 500 crores of inventory, so 500 crores worth of my capital is always tied down. I might be consuming and replenishing, but if I'm operating with a 500 crore working capital on inventory, it is that much capital which is tied up, which I could have used elsewhere to generate growth. Very good companies, they work on negative working capital. What does negative working capital means? I take orders, I take the money in advance and use that to run my business. Then I'm not using my own capital. I'm taking the payment which I got in advance to run the business. So very good companies aim to go towards zero working capital or negative working capital. It is not good to tie down your own capital. You must use capital from elsewhere. And that is the principle of working capital reduction. Then another thing which determines trust and good practices, healthy practices, monitors pilferage across a company is what is the income from sale of scrap. Especially in MRO business, huge amount of spares get consumed, and the old spares must be monitored as to are they being sold as scrap or are you refurbishing them, recycling them, and that should generate a healthy line of revenue. That is income from sale of scrap. So these are the key 8 or 9 parameters, KPIs for the finance CFO by which he judges. Based on that, he will derive his higher level analysis factors like return on investment, return on equity, return on capital employed, etc. Next is supply chain and logistics. Very important in MRO business. So the KPIs for a supply chain head is first is the inventory accuracy. How much of what he bought this year is what he's going to consume this year? If he's buying things this year which he has not been able to consume this year, then his inventory accuracy is weak. So ideally, he should, based on turnaround time, he should plan his inventory in such a way that his consumption rates and purchase rates match. And there has to be a reduction in slow and dead inventory. A slow inventory is typically what takes more than 1 year to consume when you're holding spares, where the consumption is takes more than 1 year. And dead inventory is where you've not consumed any inventory for 4 or 5 years or so. All companies will need some amount of dead inventory because let us say I'm supporting a particular turbine. 10 years down the line, all spares for this turbine in the industry might run out. So I have to hold certain spares for that eventuality. But how much I hold defines my policy on dead inventory that I carry. It is for future investment. Next is inventory carrying cost in terms of infrastructure cost and depreciation. If I have large infrastructure of my own, then I have sunk my capital in maintaining and developing and maintaining this infrastructure. Similarly, when I hold large inventory, every year the inventory depreciates, and this is a loss. A good supply chain head and a good, in combination with a good CFO, will ensure that this infrastructure is held by the vendors. He will ensure that the spares he needs is mostly held with the vendors, and he will set his processes up in such a way that these spares come to him when he needs it. Then is what is the amount of inventory you hold per unit of equipment being maintained. For example, we were calculating how much is my inventory in lakhs per megawatt of turbine capacity. It should be, say, 1 lakh per megawatt, 1.5 lakhs per megawatt. And based on that, you will know if my total inventory consumption is 3 lakhs a year and my inventory I'm holding at all times 1.5 lakhs, then I know I've got a healthy inventory turnover ratio. So how much inventory per unit of equipment being maintained, and how much of this is not slow, not dead, but actually moving inventory. Then is turnaround time. A good supply chain head will ensure that his TAT is always reducing. He will find methods by which he raises his purchase requisitions, his purchase orders well in time. He is able to have enough vendors and liaison with vendors so that he knows that they can provide the spares in the quickest possible time, so that the turnaround time is kept to a minimum. If you have huge turnaround times of 9 months, 1 year, then your inventory proportionately goes up. So a good supply chain head will ensure that turnaround times are kept to the minimum. Next is transportation cost. Typically in large businesses, you move spares. Let us say I have to move a blade from Gujarat to some other state. It requires hiring of huge trailers. So cost of moving a blade from, say, from Gujarat to Tamil Nadu could cost me something like 10 lakhs per movement. And we have to see that we do not spend too much on transportation. So it is how accurately you position your inventory, how accurately you have relations with your vendors, so that you can bring down this transportation cost. I should be able to position my inventory in such a manner that least movement is there on it. So that defines your transportation costs. Next is reduction in cost of hiring plant and machinery and monitoring their idling time. Now, typically in the wind energy business, you hire very huge cranes, large earth moving equipment, JCBs, etc. Now, the aim is that the cost we spend to hire this should be kept to the lowest. If our systems are good, I will need less hiring of these equipment. And secondly, once I've hired this equipment, a crane can cost me something like 2 lakhs a day. Their idling time should be minimum. So once I've hired a crane, I should be able to put it into operation at the earliest, and it should never idle. So these factors are monitored as KPIs. Next is supplier performance in terms of increasing his stocking levels, his repair facilities, and delivery time. So within the MRO, your aim is to decrease your stocking levels, decrease your infrastructure cost, and decrease your delivery time. When it comes to your vendors, you want him to hold large stocks. You want him to establish good repair facilities so that your stocks get repaired on time. And you want him to deliver in the quickest time so that your turnaround time is reduced. So you got to have liaison with suppliers, give him a look ahead into the future of the business. Hand-holding with vendors and suppliers is very important. In government organizations, people look on vendors and suppliers often with suspicion. But one must understand is that they are partners in your business. Good suppliers, good supplier performance will enhance your profits. Now, while you're trying to minimize your stocking levels, you're trying to minimize your infrastructure cost, at the same time, you should not get into a condition called stock out. Stock out is when your equipment is down and you don't have the spares. So minimizing and monitoring stock out frequency is very important. It's an unpredictable business. You don't know how parts will fail. It could so happen that a particular gearbox failed and that gearbox is not in that state. It will take you 45 days to move it from another state to that state because you have to hire huge vehicles and trailers and all. But this should be kept to a minimum. So your planning, your foresight, your engineering team, your maintenance and repair team should be able to very accurately predict as to what are their vital, essential, and desirable spares, what are their fast, normal, and slow consumptions, what are their ABC spares, so that you minimize your stockouts. Another very important thing is for a supply chain head is he should not get into single vendor situation, or he should not get into a situation where all his vendors are abroad, so that he has to import. So a good supply chain head will continuously develop new vendors. He will assist vendors in developing their facilities. He'll give them a look ahead into the future of your business so that they will invest and develop their facilities. So we monitor how many new vendors he's developed as to what the facilities they have developed, which is the functioning of our own business. It has to be a continuous endeavor because of our fluctuating foreign exchange rates, international situations. Like in COVID, we had massive problems when the shipping industry stopped, the airline industry stopped, that you rely as much as possible on localization. Your spares must come from within India or within the geographical area where you're operating. So you should continuously aim to indigenize imported equipment. And localization is another thing. Within the company, you localize, you set up facilities to indigenize, reverse engineer, manufacture spares. You encourage vendors to develop spares which you can use in your business. You encourage foreign vendors to establish their warehouses and repair facilities within India. So these are the 10 parameters, KPIs for a supply chain head. Next is customer relation. Many people place the CRM right on top. I placed it after finance and supply chain, but that is changes from style of leadership to style of leadership. But finally, it's the customer who generates your business. So the KPIs for customer relationship, basically whose job is AMC contract management, is maintenance of accurate customer satisfaction score. So you must have a method by which you can evaluate customer satisfaction score and you can get genuine feedback. A customer will rarely give you positive feedback unless he's truly happy. But he will continuously come out with certain factors. If you ask him accurately, you will know where you can improve your business. So maintenance of accurate customer satisfaction score is important. Another method of measuring customer satisfaction is how many contracts are you able to renew? How good are you in retaining customers? So one of the strong points of Suzlon when I was working is we never lost any business. Out of the 13 odd gigawatts in India, not that we have installed, not more than maybe 20-30 megawatts, that is 0.2%, has been lost to the competition. We have retained our customers over the lifespan. That is a sign of great customer satisfaction. The capability of renewal of contracts, retaining a customer for the next 5 years, 10 years. Then is response time to a customer feedback. A customer has sent a message, my so-and-so turbine is down, I have this problem in so-and-so report coming in. How quickly do you respond to it? How quickly do you satisfy his issue raised and close that issue? This is a very important factor, KPI for CRM teams. Then is outstanding payments. Now, typically your business runs on payments coming in from a customer. And in India, customers do not pay on time. It's a typical problem you face with Indian customers, especially. Although the contract says you must pay within 90 days, they try to delay it as much as possible. Pay it either on the 90th day or hold out still. So a good CRM team should be able to get this money in without breaking relations with the customer or souring relations with the customer. Customer retention, which we spoke on earlier, how much percentage of customers are being retained. Then is sale of value-added products. Now, within your MRO business, apart from the maintenance and repair, you also make certain value-added products. What are these value-added products? Like I can make an app which enables a customer to monitor the performance of his fleet better. I can sell this app to the customer. I can make an app which does condition-based monitoring, say, of his costly assemblies in his turbine. I can sell that app to him so that he knows how well his fleet is running. I can make, say, an app which enables the generator of the turbine to work at a higher capacity. Not an app, but a value-added product. I can sell that to a customer at some cost. So the capability of a CRM team, his KPI, one of them is how much value-added products is he increasing the business by annually. Another aspect is improvement in the quality of contracts, the AMC contracts. Now, when the first turbine is sold, the contract is decided by the business management team. But when a contract gets renewed, that is when the MRO team gets involved in it. And this is when you can improve the quality of the contract. So let us say your contract said, I will give you 95% availability. But you have been over the last 10 years regularly giving him 97, 98. You should be able to negotiate some incentive for giving him higher than the assured rate performance. You should be able to negotiate and reduce the liquidity damages wherever there are cases of underperformance. So this is also important KPI for the CRM team. Now we come to the maintenance and repair team. These are actually the main bulk of the force who are doing your business for you, who are actually operating on ground. And there are, within a maintenance repair team, there are hundreds of parameters by which you can focus on their work. But the key performance indicators are, first is overall equipment effectiveness. OEE is a product of the availability. It could be time-based availability, energy-based availability, into performance, into quality. Quality is first pass work. Performance is anything that causes an MRO process to run at less than maximum possible speed. So performance parameters can be measured, availability can be measured, quality can be measured, and the product of this determines an overall equipment effectiveness. Like often we find, at least in the army, we say my vehicle availability is 99%. But when we look into the actual parameters, we find that we have reduced, even if the tire is not available, we say no, the vehicle is available, but the tire was not available. That is an ordnance function. Or the vehicle is available, but the engine is not there right now. That's an ordnance function. So that gives a wrong picture of the equipment availability. So overall equipment effectiveness is what matters. The business owner, that means the owner of a turbine, is not bothered as to what is the reason why his turbine is not running. But the fact that it's not running means he's losing generation. He's losing revenue. So OEE is very important. Next is mean time between failure. This determines the reliability of your equipment. Mean time to repair determines the efficiency of your teams. And also in combination with quality, that is first pass. It should not be that I quickly put it on road and within 2 days it fails again. So the mean time between failure and MTTR are both linked to each other. Then is scheduled compliance to plan. We have designed a plan to maintain your equipment. When should the preventive maintenance be done? And typically it is done when wind speeds are less, generation losses are less, if we shut down a machine then. But if I don't stick to that plan, and when the wind speed is less, I say I'm not available and I come to repair the equipment only when good wind speeds are there, then my scheduled compliance is bad. There's a loss of revenue to the customer. So this scheduled compliance to the plan is a very important factor which is monitored. Next is ratio of scheduled to unscheduled maintenance in numbers and in time. In a good organization, the equipment availability should be about 98% plus in terms of time. Basically, what this means is the total time spent on scheduled and unscheduled maintenance should not be more than 2% in a year or closer to 1%. Now, the scheduled time is typically fixed. Twice a year, I must carry out preventive maintenance. It will take me 24 hours for 2 maintenances. So that means that relieves only maximum a machine can be down is for another 24 hours or 48 hours in unscheduled maintenance. So time-based this ratio, ideally, the ratio of scheduled to unscheduled maintenance should be as low as possible. That means I spend more on preventive maintenance, more time, so that there's less unscheduled failures. Similarly, the number of times I visit a turbine. If I'm visiting a turbine twice for scheduled maintenance, I should visit as less as possible for unscheduled maintenance. So this is monitored in terms of numbers and time. Then in reduction of major failures. Major failures are failures like the large assemblies, the blades, because this can set a machine down for 60 days, 90 days in a year. Gearbox can again set you down. Main bearings, the pitch bearing. So these are the generator. So if your quality of your maintenance and repair is good, your scheduled maintenance are good, your lubrication tasks are carried out well in time, your predictive maintenance is good, then the major failures happen less. So these are the 6 parameters by which You can set the KPIs for the maintenance and repair teams. Then we come to the engineering team. The job of the engineering team is to continuously improve the quality of the maintenance and repair, the quality of that equipment, its effectiveness. So their role is, first is in reduction of major breakdowns which require external plant and machinery. Like I told you, a crane cost me something like 2 to 3 lakhs a day. And for a gearbox, I need a crane for at least 30-45 days from the time of hiring. Same for blades. So a major breakdown can be very draining on my revenues. So a good engineering team must see that major breakdowns happen as less as possible. They are continuously monitoring the data which comes from the turbine to see that any warning that comes up is treated immediately so that a major breakdown doesn't happen. And if a major breakdown is, they know it is going to happen, they will try to ensure that that part is replaced in the low wind season when energy production is lesser. Another aspect the engineering team looks at is how to reduce the mean time between failure of the top 10 spares which fail in terms of costs. So the top 10 costliest spares which are failing, how to reduce their failure rate. So they keep on analyzing as to why spares, a particular spare, let us say a pitch bearing is failing. What could be the reason? Is it due to lubrication? It could be a design effect. It could be some loading factor. And they keep on addressing those issues. Similarly, what are the top 10 failures in terms of downtime? And how to reduce that mean time between failure. Then system level performance, operational effectiveness, which I defined in the maintenance team as well. Then is how many times, how much can I develop jigs and fixtures so that I can avoid hiring a crane and repair with craneless systems. With the help of jigs, pulleys, and other motors, I can lift a gearbox, a 40-ton gearbox to the top floor. So I need to develop such jigs so that I can replace say a blade of a smaller turbine, a gearbox of a smaller turbine, a bearing of a smaller turbine without hiring a crane. So the job of the engineering team is to continuously do this load analysis and develop jigs and fixtures so that we can carry out repairs without using cranes. Next is, the aim should be when a spare fails, you should be able to refurbish and reuse that spare. So you need to continuously develop methods by which you can develop repair facilities for these spares. Let us say I cannot replace the housing of a gearbox, but the internals I can replace. So I develop a gearbox refurbishment place where I just replace the internals. I don't have to go and buy a new gearbox for 2 crores, but I can repair it, say, for 30-40 lakhs. So I've saved huge revenue. Same with bearings. Same with, say, some equipment where I can replace the teeth easily. Then is on giving input so that you can develop condition-based monitoring and predictive analytics solutions. In the wind industry, we extensively use the Internet of Things and sensors to continuously give us a feedback of the performance of the machine. Now, this data that is generated is of no use unless you develop good CBM and predictive analytics solutions. CBM is condition-based maintenance. Then localization. If the supply chain has to indigenize the manufacturer of spare, it is the engineering team does the reverse engineering process for them. That gives them the drawings, that gives them the material analysis, that gives them its functional analysis so that they can indigenize. And typically, when the OEM sends a list of spares, he will give a huge list of spares that the MRO team should hold. But many of them you don't need. And if you exactly follow what the OEM says, you will end up with too much inventory. So the engineering team narrows down on this and gives an accurate MRO list of recommended spares, which is what are the spares which are actually consumed, fast, normal spares, it defines them. So these are the KPIs for an engineering team. Now we come to the IT, ERP team, which basically is involved in business and engineering analytics. This is a very, very important field. So their job is IT failure, mean time between failure to reduce. Remember, if the connectivity is lost, I have lost touch with from my control centers to the turbines. A turbine could be down, I may not come to know of it. So my connectivity has to be always perfect. My analysis coming out has to be always correct, the data coming. So IT failure, MTBF, IT failure, MTTR, communication availability. Then the number of IT security incidents, so that there is no loss of data. There is no data which falls into the wrong hands. There's no data which goes out of our system to the competition. This is a very important role of the IT and ERP team. What are the firewalls and safety systems, cybersecurity systems that they've installed, so that there is no threat from competition of loss of our data to them. Next is number of new applications deployed, which empower at various levels, right from that worker at the site to the head office. So at the site, when the worker goes, if he gets a fault, the app should tell him, this is the fault. These are the spares you require for the fault. These are the tools you require to carry. And this is the area where you repair it. So such apps are developed. Then you have apps which monitor your preventive maintenance. So there's a checklist which comes up on his mobile, and when he goes to a particular part of the turbine, he clicks on that, the photo comes up as to what is the maintenance he has to do on it, does that. So a PM app. So like that, or a health and safety app, which monitors exactly what are the health precautions, safety precautions while doing a particular job. So the digitization of the job safety analysis on the job cards is a new app. So like this, there are lots of apps which are deployed, which empower the worker at a site and empower the head office, which is monitoring all the work going on. Then is dashboard deployment. Very, very important aspect. You will find that in many businesses, 50% of the time your staff is only working on PowerPoint or Excel. And when you're generating data which is held in huge amount already, you know that the typical reports and returns which you need are standard. There should be no need for your staff to be spending any portion of their time on preparing a presentation for a report or preparing an Excel sheet for a report. Dashboard should automatically be designed in such a way that the data is there on a click of a button. And it saves massive time of senior management. So senior management need to define what dashboards they want for monitoring, what to monitor the KPIs or daily performance or weekly performance or a particular aspect. These dashboards are developed by the analytics team and are always available at the click of a button. It is very unhealthy and demoralizing to see if your management is busy making PowerPoint presentations or busy working on Excel sheets to do calculations. It should automatically get generated by dashboards. You've got massive data coming in, use it. Develop apps which generate your dashboards instantaneously. Then condition-based monitoring, predictive analytic apps. We discussed this earlier. And another very important thing is training the people. Like in Suzlon, I had about 6,000 engineers across India in 160 different sites. Every one of them knew how to use the SAP system for his needs, either to enter data or to read and analyze data. So this training on ERP, training on using of apps, training on using of dashboards, very important. You don't train a person on using a particular app, he will go back to the old PowerPoint and Excel again and waste his time. So you need to train your team continuously to be on the cutting edge of digital technology. Next is we come to the quality department. So the quality department's role is to see that your scheduled maintenance, your unscheduled maintenance, your equipment maintenance is perfect in terms of quality. So this is measured by checking how many times do they do a quality check on scheduled maintenance. What is the scheduled maintenance effectiveness? I may have done the preventive maintenance, but if an equipment fails within a week after it has been overhauled or repaired or done a PM, then it is useless. So we monitor what is the first failure after scheduled maintenance. If it is less, that is a sign that the teams are not putting in quality scheduled maintenance. Then similarly, time for first failure after a major component and unscheduled maintenance. When I have to replace a gearbox, I have to dismantle a lot of parts of a turbine. So just putting a gearbox and then saying that the turbine is running can result in a quick failure due to some other reason. So we monitor what is the time for first failure after a major component unscheduled maintenance. First pass. The team goes to the turbine, and how many times does it repair it in one go? Or does it go to the turbine, analyze the turbine, come back and say, I need these spares, again go back to the turbine, still can't start it, come back and go for additional spares or tools. So we monitor this first pass yield. That based on a fault, the team should correctly know what spares and what tools are required, that he doesn't have to travel up and down to the turbine from the stores, because you will lose critical hours in that. Defect density. I'm repairing and refurbishing a lot of components. How many defects arrives in what I do? Then is we buy a lot of spares. My inventory budget used to be close to 500 crores a year. So the incoming spares that come in, that quality inspection is very important, because the warranty time starts from the moment you have opened the receipt. You note on that. And let us say I have bought a new spare and it fails. How quickly I raise an FIR with the OEM, how quickly I can process the warranty, how quickly I can ensure that either the failed part is replaced or I get compensated financially, is a function of the quality department. It could also be given to the supply chain department, but in our company, it was with the quality department. Next is health, safety, and environment. Now, typically the wind energy business, you're working at heights, you're working with very high currents and voltages. Health and safety are critically important. We monitor the health of our people right from the moment he leaves his guest house till he returns to the guest house. If we lose time due to his stomach upset or any such reason, it is monitored, it is recorded. If he falls down even, in his at say in the bathroom of his guest house where we have created accommodation and injures himself, we have lost time. So those are also monitored. So here we have various yardsticks by which we measure. First is lost time due to injuries. Whenever a worker misses more than 24 hours, this time is monitored. A small first aid, like he has cut his finger and goes for first aid, those are fine. Then the severity of injuries. So in case there's a death or a fatality, it is very serious. It hurts the business image very heavily. So we have to ensure that there are 0 deaths, 0 fatalities. Similarly, 0 injuries at work. The job safety analysis to be so accurate that there's no question that a nut fell on somebody's helmet, because even a nut falling from the top of a wind turbine onto the head of a man and he's not wearing a helmet can kill him. So we monitor this very accurately, and this injuries are fatal injuries, major injuries where downtime of a man is more than 24 hours. And we also give some negative points for first aid injuries. Let us say while screwing something, his dress got caught somewhere and it tore, or he got a cut on the side of his body. These are all monitored. Next is near miss frequency. We encourage all workers to record near misses. He might have gone to a turbine and some equipment, say a large hammer fell 2 inches from his toes. He was safe, but it was a near miss. It could have resulted in him having a fracture. So these are all recorded. Number of workplace inspections. Every manager, every leader must visit the workplace as often as possible. And when he visits, it's not a general purpose visit, but he visits with his eye on safety. He looks at the entire safety processes of how the work is going on. And these workplace inspections, everybody has been given that you must do, say, 2 a month, 3 a month, some have to do daily, and this is monitored. Then reporting on safety violations. Now what happens is typically workers, they're very quick to report a safety violation that say this plug is not working or this plug had open wires. But when their fellow worker is doing a safety violation, like he's traveling without a seat belt in his car to work, or are on the site, my vehicle which is going to the turbine, these people are sitting without putting on their helmets and safety belts. They don't report such violations. While climbing up the turbine, he's not using his safety harnesses. These violations we encourage reporting. And in case we find a violation and nobody is reported, then the entire team is penalized. So we encourage this healthy culture of reporting safety violations because it's in the interest of the health of the people. Training on health, safety, and environment. It's no use just capturing data if the people don't know what to do. So every task which they are likely to do, the health and safety aspects of it is taught to the workers. And this is taught before they're inducted in the job. Every time my worker goes to the turbine, there is a safety briefing when he leaves the workplace and at the base of the turbine. And he's exactly told what to expect on safety. And every task that has been done, a job safety analysis card has been developed by the HSE team, which has to be carried, and the team leader reads out this JSA before the job is started. So these are the KPIs for the health, safety, and environment team. Then comes to the HR department. Now, unlike the army or the defense services, where we spend a lot of time on developing our manpower, seeing their career growth is good, seeing their posting profiles are good. Our best of our staff is in the HR department. The MS branch typically takes the best of the officers. In industry outside, the HR department is unfortunately always the weakest. But they can greatly impact worker morale and efficiency of a company. So their KPIs are employee turnover rate. If it is noticed that employees are joining the company, leaving within a year, 2 years, it's a sign that something is wrong. So this employee turnover rate is monitored. At the same time, we do not want employees who come into a company and don't leave for 10, 15 years, because our work involves a lot of outdoor work, climbing turbines. So we decide what is the healthy turnover. Then how much time to fill voids? I need 2 employees at a particular site. How much time do you take to identify a chap, interview him, check his suitability, and position him? So that time to fill voids. How much are the voids? Then how much time are you spending on training and developing the manpower? One is at induction, and second is periodically. Another very important aspect is workforce utilization. What is your ratio of managers to workers? Some organizations, the worker defines the output. The manager defines the efficiency of the output. So you cannot have too many managers to workers. So ideally, say in a good company, say 80% of the force is workforce and not more than 20% should be management, or even lesser in more efficient companies. Then we get feedback from workers. There's a well-designed employee satisfaction scorecard, which they fill up, which is anonymous, and based on this, employee satisfaction scores are measured. Similarly, we hire a lot of labor. For my 6,000 on-roll workers, I add another 12,000 hired labor. So our compliances, so that we do not violate any labor ministry orders or have accidents in their case, their safety, their PF, those compliances, that score is maintained. Then today in the social media, there are a number of websites where you get feedback on how happy workers are, like Glassdoor. There are 4 or 5 other social media outlets. So they capture the feedback from this and see and try to address what are the reasons why an HR is unsatisfied and has gone out of the company to the social media. So these are the KPIs for a HR resource department. Then, of course, the admin department. The administration typically lean, but have got very important functions. They have to ensure that the plant and machinery on the floor is always available. kept clean, neat, maintained well the plant and machinery. This is the role of the administrative facility. They typically outsource this maintenance, but they must ensure that it is always available when required. Similarly, maintenance of test jigs and test equipment. You spend on security. How effective is the security? How many thefts took place? How many strikes took place? And how much are you spending on security per location? Then cases of labor unrest. Labor unrest typically happens when, let us say, their food is not good, their living conditions are not good, the vehicle provided to him is not good, and he's uneasy with that. So how low is this labor unrest? Employee comfort score is another scorecard which we had designed, where the employees fill it anonymously on the quality of their room, the quality of the beds, quality of the pillows they have, the cleanliness of their accommodation, the quality of the food, the quality of the vehicles which are provided to them, the cleanliness of the safety equipment provided to them. All this is monitored. So these are the KPIs of the administrative department. So finally, in conclusion, as we see, KPIs can be all encompassing, and if everybody focuses on KPIs, a company is guaranteed to grow in the designated direction. So KPIs enable you to understand the performance and health of the business. KPIs enable critical adjustments in execution to achieve your strategic goals. Knowing and measuring the right KPIs, right is the most important word, will help you achieve results faster. You should not have KPIs just for the sake of having KPIs. Every KPI must contribute to the overall goal strategy. And finally, KPIs increase the trust in various components of business. It ensures that if every stakeholder is interested that his performance-linked incentive, his his increase in salary is linked to his KPI score, the trust in the various components of the business goes up. Nobody will try to fudge his performance because it will straight away show up in KPIs. So it increases trust in an organization. Recently, we had a very interesting talk on how to measure trust in a business. Best method of measuring trust in a business is by having well-defined KPIs which ensure that everybody is working to the growth of the business. Thank you. I have finished. Jai Hind.